Sorry, we're starting a little late, everybody. Thank you for coming. This is a regular meeting of the Allendale Land Use Board, at which formal action will be taken on the items listed on the agenda and upon any other matters which may properly come before the Land Use Board. The requirements of the Open Public Meetings Act have been satisfied through posting on the public bulletin board and in a municipal building and on the borough website and by publication in the record on December 9th, 2025. Copies being sent to the Ridgewood News and the Herald News. Certain agenda items will be open to the public for comment and during testimony. The board will advise the public when such matters are open for comment and during testimony. Before we get started, we'll go into the flag. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Go in, roll call.
Roll call.
Thank you.
Okay, Vice Chairman Dallo.
Here.
Board Member Aguilera.
Present.
Chairman Sirico.
Here.
Board Member Butler.
Here.
Alternate Johnson.
Here.
Yes.
Okay, breeze through these couple agenda items before we come up to the application. So approval of minutes from the April 22nd, 2026 meeting. Did everybody have a chance to review them? Any questions, comments? None? Okay, may I have a motion to approve, please? I'll make a motion. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, vote. Vice Chairman Dallo.
Yes.
Board Member Aguilera.
Yes.
Chairman Sirico.
Yes.
Board Member Butler.
Yes.
Alternate Johnson.
Yes. Next on our agenda is the resolution 2026-3. Roger Schlicht, 58 Midwood Avenue, Allendale, 07401, block 205, lot 7. The application was to construct a second floor addition on top of an existing floor with a new portico pursuant to 270-14A, 270-57B, 270-57D, 270-57B1, excuse me, 270-57F, 270-64C2, 270-63A1, 270-63B, 270-57C, 270-63A-1, 270-64C2, and 270-57C. Mr. Schlick came before us 2 or 3 times. He made modifications on the last presentation, and we all approved it, but I'm going to ask council, please, for a quick summary of what we have here and then any discussion on the resolution after.
Certainly, Chairman. So, yes, Mr. Schlick was here on 2 occasions. The first occasion, there was relief for pre-existing conditions, setback conditions, structural setbacks, building area, and FAR, which brought them here for the addition of bulk relief. Mr. Schlick heeded the board's recommendations and endeavored to tighten up the plans, came back with modified programming at the second public hearing and either downward adjusted most, if not all, of the variances, and in fact eliminated a few others. The board thereafter approved the application, subject to all the standard conditions. In addition to those, there were the conditions that the applicant complied with the board engineering report of January 13th, 2026, that all existing landscaping on the property shall remain, that the modified plan showing the downward adjusted relief be submitted to the board for review and confirmation by Mr. Vreeland's office. The applicant shall investigate the satisfactory nature of the utility servicing the property and heed the recommendations of Mr. Vreeland's office related to stormwater management implementations. And the balance was satisfy all interagency approvals, permits required in connection with the application and all the standing other conditions as well.
Okay, thank you, sir. We all had an opportunity to review the resolution. Are there any questions on it? I don't think that I know there weren't any omissions, but I just wanted to make sure. Concurrent with the board. Okay. Any other discussion? Nothing else. Okay, perfect. Can I have a motion then to approve the resolution as written and was discussed by council? Thank you. Do I have a second? A second. Thank you.
Okay. Vice Chairman Dallo.
Yes.
Board Member Eckelaro.
Yes.
Chairman Sirico.
Yes.
Board Member Butler.
Yes.
Alderman Johnson.
Yes.
Now come into the public part of the meeting. An application for us. It's application file number 2026-08. Applicant is BCE New Jersey Solar 10 LLC. Site name is the Allendale Industrial Park, block 601, lots 4, 4.01, 4.02, 4.03, 4.04. Assuming it's 4.05, 4.06. One, and the address of 123-567 North Florida and 59 Route 17 South. And it's pursuant to 270-48.14A. For the installation of solar panels across the Allendale Industrial Park.
For the record, my name is Christopher Quinn, Quinn. I'm a partner with the firm Pinellas Halpern. Here on behalf of the applicant, BCE New Jersey Solar 10 LLC. So this is an application for a rooftop solar facility, as you mentioned, within the Allendale Industrial Park. It's on Pearl Court, although one property does have street address of Route 17.
Council, excuse me for one quick minute. Joanne, are we picking this up? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Please. Thank you.
I think we don't.
No, I don't think you did, but I just want to be sure. Okay.
That's fine.
Thank you.
I don't get accused ever of being soft or quiet.
Thank you. Thank you.
So again, this the entire parcel is about a 35-acre parcel comprising of those properties. It's in the E Industrial District. The industrial properties and buildings have been there for a number of years. What the applicant is proposing to do is proposing rooftop solar panel installations on 7 of the buildings within this facility. Okay, there's 8 there. There 7 of them under common ownership, and there's 1 that isn't, but it's effective with those 7 property buildings. The rooftop panels will be on the roof. There'll be some additional ground equipment that's associated with this right adjacent to the buildings. The use is actually permitted in your zone as accessory use under your ordinance, but it does have a requirement that the power generated from the building, from the solar panels, goes right to the building. Older, which a lot of people look at solar, and that's how most traditional solar facilities were installed. Your ordinance is from 2015. We don't meet that requirement. This is something a little bit different. This is a project called community solar. It's not that someone's coming here trying to utilize it. Just power is going into the grid, but it's a little bit different. It's actually a state-sponsored program that the legislature adopted in 2023. So the idea behind this is that previously a traditional solar installation, the benefit just goes to the owner of the building. So the benefit, the property owner, they get the benefit. It's reduction in their electrical bills, and public benefits because effectively, if there's less power being drained by those industrial buildings, it eases the grid. So therefore, there's less likelihood of any brownouts in the summer as well through your air conditioning. Supposed to be agreed on some of this. So this is different. And again, it's a state-sponsored program where effectively anyone, and it's really meant to benefit anyone that really can't have solar on their homes, renters, low moderate income housing, people that live in the shade, right, where you have nice shade trees that are blocking the sun. That really are right. They can subscribe. They can have into this program through the state through their power company, and then effectively they get the benefit on their utility bills, not just the owners. Okay, so that's kind of the reason. From a planning perspective, from a visual perspective, an operations perspective, it looks exactly like a permitted use. It operates just like permitted use, except the power goes into the grid, and the people getting the benefit are the community. Anyone in the community that signed up for this program. But again, the program is, and that's kind of the general concept behind community solar. We'll talk a little bit more. But from the perspective of this project, also part of the process when they go through this with the state, where the applicant does, they actually reach out to the governing body, and they have a letter of support from the mayor. That's part of this too. So this has already been disclosed to the to the governing body. they're aware of it, there's discussions, they have a letter of support here. But again, technically it does need a use variance here because your zoning ordinance says that the power has to be built. And that's so the project itself, for all these different projects, it meets all the other ordinance requirements in terms of the design, the setback, the islands, heights, everything that's required in the ordinance, it meets those requirements, except for this aspect. So we do technically need a use variance relief. But as I mentioned, first of all, I think the municipal land use law, first of all, it does recognize renewable energy like this type of solar installation as an inherently beneficial. So it does say that definitely does promote the general welfare and basically the positive for the environment for the community. What I would submit to you as well is the fact that this is actually available to the general public to utilize and to get benefit directly from it. I think it even more so reinforces that it does promote the general welfare for this community. So, secondly, the municipal land use law also has a provision that says that these types of renewable energy systems on industrial properties over 20 acres in size are actually permitted as well. So I think, again, you can kind of imply that this is really an appropriate use here. And I would submit to you that that's kind of the basis of argument. It's going to have no negative impacts, complies with all other aspects of the design with the ordinance. But effectively, that's kind of the gist of our argument, but the gist of our kind of introduction to get a sense of this. But I have two witnesses tonight. First, we have the representative of the applicant, Mr. Haynes, is going to talk about the project, answer any questions you have about that, about municipal or anything else. And then we have our planner, Paul Rickey, who can kind of talk about how this jives and how this coordinates with the law and also with the ordinance. Who has any questions, I can entertain them now or answer them now. If not, I can go right into the ordinance.
Board, any question? I have no questions. I want to get into the meat of the testimony. So, any questions? Okay,
Okay,
I'm okay with that. So,
Great, thank you.
Paul, thank you.
it's more practice to be sworn in one at a time, or we actually both be sworn at the same?
We'll swing them one at a time.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Raise your right hand, sir.
Oh.
You swear or affirm the testimony you're about to provide with the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Could you please state your name, spell your last name, provide an address for the record, please?
My name is Jack Hames, spelled H-A-I-M-S. The address of our office is 80 Business Park Drive in Armonk, New York, 10504.
That's it.
Thank you. And Mr. Haynes, you're employed by Brightcore Energy, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And Brightcore is the parent company of the applicant.
Yes, that's correct.
And can you describe your position? How are you employed? What's your title?
I'm a project developer.
And as such, you're familiar with this particular property, this project, and the plans that were submitted as part of this application?
Yes.
Okay. Now, we have an exhibit that we prepared.
But we're not qualified as an expert in the
It's a
field,
factual.
Chris?
I mean, it's actually a factual.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
You're also prepared an aerial map exhibit that kind of overlays we can provide to the board. Yes?
Yes.
Okay. What I'll ask you to do is just describe what this is, and I'll introduce this as an exhibit. So just what is this map? It's an aerial map,
Yes, it's an aerial map.
and then you took that from a Google Earth and you superimposed some of the project designs onto that.
Yes, the intent was to kind of consolidate all the information from the individual site plans into one easy to reference.
Okay. And you oversaw that preparation.
Yes.
And it accurately represents what's being proposed by the applicant.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm gonna mark this, and I think you have a larger version of
I
it
do.
too. I'll ask you, maybe lay it out here, well, first, we have copies for the board, I think it's distributed. But we'll mark this
So
as
we're gonna mark
exhibit
that A1.
A1, yes,
We'll mark the bigger one.
as A1, it's just a
A1,
small
so
copy.
Single sheet or is it?
One sheet,
One sheet.
I figured it was easier than having 7 different sets
Yeah,
of
yeah, no.
plans for everyone to review and everything else. We'll
Can you
just.
describe it as a
Sorry.
serial
If you have an
number?
extra one,
It's an aerial map, yes,
put it in the file. Thank you.
An aerial map rendering.
Record, we'll just date this today. Regardless, we're gonna do it, let's see. Date it anyway.
I was gonna write on this A1, you think, which is the 13th.
Yes,
Mhm.
Just for a reference point, on the bottom, you have Route 17. Yes. And then you have identified every building that's being proposed here along with the kind of an arrow and it's the red box, so that kind of gives the board the perspective. North is to the right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll just ask you to describe the subject property for me to kind of get that bearing.
Yes, so this is a Procourt Industrial Park. It's a commercial industrial campus right off of Route 17. There's limited visibility into the property due to surrounding tree coverage. So that's a good amount of shield from view from outside.
And what we're showing here is accurate. The Procourt is proposing to install rooftop solar facilities on several of these buildings here.
Yes, that's correct, for 7 of the buildings.
Okay, and in terms of, I'll let you kind of go, we'll go through the actual specifics of what each installation is. Now, as I mentioned before, first there's the panel, correct?
Yes.
And these will all be mounted on the rooftop?
Yes, so the panels we've installed on racks, a slight pitch facing south. We have been careful to leave space around the panels for fire department access, as well as walkways to existing rooftop equipment for servicing. The way the panels are pitched, they will be less than 1 foot above the grade of the roof and will not exceed the height of the rooftop mechanical equipment. Additionally, there is a small parapet on the majority of the buildings.
So in other words, and also, let me just mention, the panels they're also set back as required by the ordinance, the ordinance requires a 3-foot setback from the edge of the roof. They'll comply with everything.
Yes, these designs have been designed to have a 3-foot setback from the roof edge.
And in terms of, you mentioned before, there's just like almost every single solar panel, there's a slight pitch in them, but it's less than 1 foot overall from one side.
Yes, that's correct. They're pitched at 9 degrees and, you know, the way it lines up, vertical distance is under 1 foot, it's about 8 inches.
Okay. And so therefore, and the way that's located, situated, won't be any kind of glare concerns or any aspect, won't be really visible to the public.
Yes, these panels should not be visible to the public.
Especially given the amount of tree cover between either on Route 17 or on the buildings, or also just the fact the parapet wall and the setback.
Yes, that's
There's also, and again, the ordinance has certain requirements with respect to aisles for emergency access and rooftop access. All of this is incorporated to your design.
yes.
And any cabling associated on the roof, it's not going to interfere with anyone's access to the roof, correct?
Yes.
And there's not gonna be any, for all these buildings, they're all accessed internally to them, correct? Is there no ladders outside, exterior ladders?
No, access your D.
Okay. Now about, let's, in the top right corner, I guess, of this exhibit, you went through and you generated calculations about how much power is generated for each site, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Can you run through that for the board?
So based on the system sizes proposed here, the annual production of the solar system should be just short of 3 gigawatt hours on an annual basis. Based on census data, an average home consumes between 10 and 11,000 kilowatt hours per year, or megawatt hours per year. Therefore, we've estimated that these projects should power 256 homes in the local area.
And then, as separate from the panels themselves, there's also some equipment that will be looking at ground. Is that accurate?
Yes, that's correct. There will be some rack-mounted electrical inverters and AC accumulation panels, and that will be before the tie-in point for these systems, which will be on the secondary side of existing building transformers.
Okay, so, and those are kind of shown on each of these exhibits, the general location of them in the black dotted areas for the board. So each building, you show like around where it's going to be. It's located within close proximity to the building.
Yes,
And it's not much ground disturbance, about 500 to 1,000 square feet total.
yes,
And around each equipment, it's also incorporated certain safety mechanisms. Is there shutoffs that are incorporated in this system? For emergency shutoffs?
yes. So each of these systems will have a 24/7 accessible emergency disconnect switch that will achieve a safe and efficient system shutdown that will always be accessible to emergency first responders. Additionally, with the panels on the roof, they'll be wired to rapid shutdown devices where in any case of emergency, it will create a fast drop in voltage to a safe level for emergency service access on the roof as well.
This is what you normally do, but it's also an emergency department is also ready to follow.
Yes.
Okay, and in terms of the location of these, for each of these buildings, I'm gonna basically say that every single one of them complies with the ordinance requirements for setbacks.
Yes,
And it's all looking outside the wetlands. There's some wetlands on the western part of this parcel, but not within this specific.
yes,
Okay. Um. And there'll be mapping associated with each building given to the fire official part of your permitting requirements, correct?
yes,
And that's again, it's an ordinance requirement here. And the equipment will be, the ordinance also has certain marking as signage requirements will comply with all.
yes,
Okay. Now, I spoke with the board engineer, and he had some, I guess, minor concerns about some of the locations of working on some details, grading, whatnot about each of these. As a condition of approval, the applicant will be one to meet with the engineer on site and make any modifications necessary to make sure the site can accommodate the split.
yes, we'd be happy to walk the site with the board engineer, review any requested changes and comply with whatever requirements are laid out by the town engineer.
That's a subpoena.
In
Assuming-
advance,
In advance.
yes,
Yeah, that's correct, Mr. Flynn and I did have a conversation. He obviously reviewed the application, did the site generated a report, so we had a conversation. Answering the hearing, go over a few of the items that we had observed on the ground. And the plans that were submitted, I think, with regard to some of the ground-based equipment are somewhat general in nature, schematic. There's some grading, some sidewalks, some vegetation, some parking areas that may be impacted by the ground-based equipment. And we need to ask council if they would consider as a condition of approval, should the board act favorably on the application to meet with us in the field prior to permit applications being submitted and providing additional details that we felt they were necessary in order to ensure that there's ample space for sidewalks, if there's a small retaining wall that may be necessary.
And we'll comply with it.
Okay.
Correct?
yes,
Okay. So in terms of this system, these systems are monitored remotely, correct?
yes,
And access, I mentioned before, access to the roof. The site will comply with all building code requirements. We do structural analyses to confirm all that.
yes, a structural feasibility report that is stamped by a licensed PE in New Jersey will be provided to, along with the building permits.
But again, we have no concerns about this in terms of the load being able to be handled.
Yes,
And again, the height of the panels will be well below the height of all the mechanical equipment that's already on this.
yes,
In fact, and again, probably less than a foot over the height of the, or some of the equipment looks like it's 5 feet. So
yeah,
HVAC. We're not proposing any lighting part of the application. And again, you mentioned there shouldn't be any glare generated because of the panel itself, but also the orientation and the buffering around it.
yes,
Now, I'm gonna talk about community solar because again, I think that's kind of the arguments part of the whole kind of variance aspect here for this, for the use. You heard me give an introduction to community solar. Is that a fair, accurate representation?
yes.
Okay. Can you just maybe highlight a little bit of the purpose of the community solar project?
Yeah, so the community solar program was adopted by the state in 2023. This is actually a permanent program which follows up on a successful 7-year pilot program. It allows for renters or folks who can't put solar on their roof to subscribe and procure energy from solar farms not on their property at a discount from utility rates. On average, users will save around 10% on their utility bills. Additionally, there's a carve out of at least 50% of the subscribers to the program needs to be low to moderate income. So it's a great way to reduce the burden on some of their bills for folks who are low to moderate income. And additionally, it's advantageous in the sense that reduces the stress on our electric grid by local green, local generation that feeds the grid and reduces the reliance on some of the other supply mechanisms.
So it, just like any other traditional solar facility, it will ultimately have a reduction in terms of the drain on the grid for power. To help it.
Yes,
But in addition, there will be also direct benefit to any subscriber that they will be getting from the public that subscribes will be able to get a benefit in their utility bill. As opposed to just having the benefit of having less, more capacity.
yes.
Okay. I think that's the extent of my direct utility. with respect to the project for the applicant, and we can answer, hopefully we can answer any questions the board may have about this, or, let's see, there's no one from the public.
Before we open, Michael, is there anything that you need to add to, or?
I think, kind of information that I was hoping to. And we have to fill in the gaps that it's some of that.
Okay, thank you. All right, board, I have some things written down here, but, I'm gonna go through my quick things here and then I'll, everybody else, all right, if you don't mind. You said that all of these are, I'll use the word tilted, angle, south. So across the street from from Commerce, to, residents and there's all kinds of stuff like that. It's not depicted on your map. Anything that you're doing here will not be building them. I know you said it before, but I have to ask the question again. No detriment to our neighbors in South.
No, and a big contributing factor to that is that, there's a lot of landscaping and tall trees.
Yeah.
That are going to obscure the view from anybody to the south there.
Okay. Okay, and of course, it's residents, residential homes on Allendale Avenue, which are not depicted in this area. But this seemed to be far enough away that I wasn't concerned about glare.
No, there's quite a bit of buffering on to the west, correct? Like there's quite a bit of landscape buffering to the west.
Yeah, it's,
To the west there, and there is to the west, but also I was more concerned to the east with the Saddle River, my reference to Saddle River.
Sure.
And then my reference to the south to people, which this is obviously deeper in from Allendale Avenue, because there are some residents over there as well.
Sure. Well, also to the south, I think those homes are lower in elevation to make it even less impact.
Okay.
Same thing with the town home on the other side.
And the top now, sure, that's true, the town home as well.
Yeah, that's when they are much lower, which actually helps greatly in terms of that. In terms of, first of all, your testimony stands as it was, the existing buffering around here and also with the parapet heights and the very low pitch of the panels. It still stands, but it also is almost felt from the suspenders the back of the homes that are around are at a lower elevation. So they're not going to be able to see up over the height of those areas.
Okay,
Correct?
yes.
okay, that's very, thank you. That I had was the panels themselves. There'll be a structural engineer going in and making sure all the buildings would support the weight. Is what I think I heard, right?
Yes,
what I
that's
heard.
correct.
Okay.
So
What is
they-
something like this weigh? I'm sorry for interrupting. What is, like, how much extra does this add to the tire? Like tons, pounds?
What is the weight of one cell?
Yeah, so one panel is around 200 pounds, and the way that the systems are designed is to spread out the load across the roof. So in any localized area, there's no trade. I've got to no more than 5 pounds per square foot, and this is achieved by a combination of ballast and mechanical centers.
And again, this has to be verified with making sure the building
Absolutely.
Yes.
will support that. And
That's where I was.
No, again, this is all done as part of the permitting. They give a licensed structural engineer will provide that as part of the permit. That's always, they always do that as part of their asset.
So just to elaborate on this question, if I may. So 200 pounds per each solar array. What is the dimensions? 3.5. I only see 3.5 width. I don't see the length. It's either 44 inches by, doesn't say a length on it. On the fourth sheet, it just shows a side view of it. It says 44.64 inches, but it doesn't say it's
6 feet.
6 feet.
Yeah. Oh, I would like to correct myself on the weight of the panel. It seems like one panel is 77 pounds. Yeah.
Rather have you corrected than we have that information. I'm
Yeah.
okay with that.
So the panels actually fastened directly to the roof structure, or are they held down by ballast? How are they secured?
So there's a racking system that's essentially rails that will be mounted to the roof with a combination of ballast and mechanical attachments, depending on, various factors like uplift force or how much capacity the roof can hold. And the panels themselves are fastened to this racking rail system.
And the racking itself, as you said, is obviously bolted to the roof.
Yes.
Is there a maximum wind speed that has in this thing that's saying? I mean, if a hurricane showed up, that's effectively challenge for everybody. Is there some wind speed that you thought is to?
Yeah, I'm not sure I know it off the top of my head, but we will refer to OSFI requirements, and that's based on, where the building is. There's geography, there's a, requirement for what that maximum wind velocity would be. That's kind of governed by this.
Yeah, it simply isn't a change for, and I agree with it, isn't a change, depends on every county, typically has its own separate set of standards for what the minimum, what the wind load has to be.
Yes.
I hope so, the studio project in Miami recently, they just had a very high number, much higher than we ever see in New Jersey.
Right.
But, nonetheless, it will comply, and we don't comply.
Yes.
Just wacky left field question. If anybody's worried about that, why would they put them on a angle, not flat?
Intention of the angle is to,
And I understand the whole, the sun ray or.
that's what it is, as the panels are tilted towards the south, you're going to get a higher yield out of the panels in terms of how much energy they're generating. That's something.
And I can say, as I drove here, in fact, on my way here, I drove past a ground mounted facility in my hometown, and the pitch was much higher. In fact, than what
Yes.
we're doing. This isn't a very particularly high pitch.
Yeah, 10 degrees is much lower than what is, optimal for solar performance, but it's, better for the roof, better for the community, and it's just more effective in a rooftop application.
What is optimum?
I think it's like 22 degrees. I'm not 100%.
Most of these buildings were built with no roof floor and expectation that there was a no floor from it. But you have to redo the structure internally to kind of can't say under the way.
No, so all of the structural evaluations are based on existing roof decking and how it's designed, how it was built. So there's no proposed modifications to the roof. I will say that for all of these sites, the roof membranes are all being swapped out. Just to, reduce the impact of the solar system on the roof structure.
So you're putting a brand new roof on all of them?
Yeah, they're putting a brand new TPO roof membrane on all of these buildings. If you reference the exhibit, you'll see the ones that are white have already been replaced, and the ones that are black are either well underway to be replaced, and 100% will be prior to start of construction.
And they also have the maintenance too, so you're not 5 years from now having to replace it.
Yes, that's correct.
So I do have a question. You mentioned the walkway width and all that, the fire department access. You talked about the rapid shutdown switch. With that rapid shutdown switch, how long does it take or react to for a complete shutdown?
For the rapid shutdown devices that are wired to each module on the roof, that will occur within seconds. And for the emergency disconnect switch on the ground level, it will be immediate.
Since you're doing this in such a large area, would your company be opposed to doing a training or a walkthrough with the local agency, fire department, for this? Just so, if an emergency happens, they're able to see what they need to do to shut it down and go from there.
That's something that could be accommodated for sure.
Perfect. I know how solar works. Is there anything to stop? Is there anything in place for these panels to stop the solar being generated once it's disconnected? So I'm saying if a panel needs to be removed from there, is there anything that stops it from generating power?
Okay, the inverters that are connected to the panels are grid interactive, meaning that if there's any lack of voltage to them, the entire system will shut down. So turning off that inverter will allow for that section of the grid to be accessible and swap out the panels.
Well, let's say God forbid there's a situation. In the middle of the day, 95 degrees out. The panels themselves, I mean, they're lined with a metal, I'm assuming. These things get flat.
They,
And it sounds like a dumb question. It's obviously, it's like. You got sun coming on to it, so I'm assuming that there's some level of temperature, but do these things get crazy hot?
they shouldn't, no. Yeah, so the panels themselves have a operating temperature. And that's the at standard conditions, that's how it operates. Trying to think of a way to word.
And that's what make it hazardous. It wouldn't be operating in a way that's hazardous. So it'd be able to be handled without a light sensitive.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. This 24/7 emergency switch. What, you install them, what is the recommended time? When is the recommended, like, how often would you test these things? To make sure, I mean, and the reason why I'm asking this again, if you're putting it on top of buildings and around here, I'm assuming you live around there, got some snow this year. Okay, which we haven't had for some time. So you're getting everywhere cold. So you've got cold and then you got set on top of the building in the sun, they're getting 140, 150 degrees, whatever. Okay, so the breakdown on these emergency switches, how often is that tested and who tests it? And is that documented to at least be provided to the building owners? Or to our fire department. I'm looking for protection. Okay. Andy, if you want to add something to what I just said, please do. To what I just said, I'm sorry. If you want to add something.
I'm comfortable with what he's saying with the, they're going to do training, all that kind of stuff with, they're going to if it shuts down. Shutdown switch is going to be seconds and the main switch is going to be instantaneous.
Okay,
So
but how often should those switches?
Yes, they do hire a maintenance company to come out and basically comes regularly to make sure everything's working properly.
Yeah, so standard industry practice, there's an operations and maintenance provider that will, service the system. In addition to kind of, if there's any issues with performance or any issues identified with specific hardware, which is all monitored remotely, they'll also perform at least annual checks on if all of the equipment is functioning properly.
Plus you work with your owner, so they have people on site the people that are that always get the problem and call and contact them. Correct?
Yes. So in addition to, these projects, we will provide the township with an operations and maintenance manual, which will kind of outline the safe operating procedures for all the associated hardware. And this will be given to the township as well as to the the maintenance person on site, the asset manager, so they'll be familiar with all the associated solar equipment, and with anybody on site, they'll be able to direct them to where they need to go for emergency responders.
Obviously, electronic, but
Yes,
The emergency disconnect switch you have for the system, is that down on the ground next to all the other equipment?
yes, this is the on the ground level.
And how,
Building will have, I'm sorry, excuse me, just to clarify before you go further, so each building, which is what those areas that you depicted in this square will have. Go ahead.
That's correct.
Yes,
and that ground mounted equipment, is it protected by a fence? Is it tamper proof? Are they tamper proof panels? How does? Worried about the public, if somebody gets in there who shouldn't be there tampering with equipment.
yeah,
can they-
of course. So the equipment is all lockable.
Yep.
How we currently have it designed, on the exhibit and in the site plans is that 6 out of the 7 areas have bollards. However, if it's, desired by the township for safety purposes or for, to dissuade the general public from access, whether it's privacy screening or a fence or whatever, we'd be happy to comply with that as well if that's desired. So that's something that's if you want, then we'd be happy to put a fence.
But it's typically locked, so it's not available. It's not going to be something that. First of all, I don't think this is really the area that's going to be the attractive nuisance to teenagers who are
That's
looking
what
to
I'm
hang out on
thinking
the
about.
Friday
Yeah,
night,
yeah.
and they're in the parking lot or whatnot. I don't think this is the location here, but even if it was, I don't think it's the kind of equipment that's going to stand out to them. It's going to say, this is the spot that's going to be turned off.
Yeah,
In fact, rather, it's probably the people that are going to know or the people that should know, the people in the building, fire department, and the people that actually understand the school.
yes.
Is he not spot?
so I was just, just gonna inquire. Each building has a knock spot on them. If you're not familiar with a knock spot is, it's a fire department access box,
Mhm.
24/7 in case of emergency in the building. Can there be keys to those panels incorporated into the boxes? So there are keys to them. For the simple reason of if the unit needs to be shut down in an emergency, obviously those shutdown switches would be in that cabinet, correct?
That has access.
I think the appropriate, I think is the appropriate answer that we can work with the fire department to make sure that it's appropriate. It may not be that specific key, but it's whatever they deem appropriate. If it's a key, if it's something else, whatever it is.
Yeah.
All I'm looking
Certainly
for is all I'm looking
accommodate.
for is something to get into the panel to access the emergency shutdown just in case.
Yes, I think that's acceptable. It's like I said, whether it's a physical key or what code or whatever it is, they'll verify it, work it out with the fire.
That's right. Just for clarity, these panels don't provide power to the buildings they reside on. They only provide power to the grid.
That's correct. Well, yeah, kind of how the program is set up. The on-site building is referred to as an anchor tenant. So there's kind of a carve out of how much of the system generation is allowable to be used on site. So, I'm assuming that these buildings will be the anchor tenants for these community solar projects. Likely some of the energy will go there as well. I'm not recalling, in the program how much of the percentage of the power can go to this anchor tenant, but they will be subscribers to the projects.
So in other words, it's a portion is possible, is potential, but it's not the full intention of the project.
Yeah,
Again, that's the difference between probably if you drive and you see a 10-year-old solar facility on the rooftops throughout New Jersey, that's probably what you saw before.
Yeah.
And that's the limit. So it'd probably be what percentage? So
It's most, maybe for me, just to be simple here, okay? These panels are not intended to take these 7 buildings off the power grid.
no, they're not.
Okay, they're not, their intention. These the buildings are, as you called it, an anchor. To anchor the panels for the generation of electricity to be sold into the grid. And maybe the building may get a little bit of its use there.
Right, they could subscribe to the
Theoretical.
program just like anyone else.
Okay.
No, the benefit of the program is for the public,
That's for the
not
public.
for, and again, community solar and the state has dictated the program. Not for the private individual property.
Jessica? Good. Okay. You had mentioned. It's here with parking, whenever we would have these tenants go there and things like that, that becomes a bigger situation as the board has to review. So, with where you're gonna locate the panels, the terminal panels, whatever we're depicting these squares, there's, you know, what are you guys projecting the impact? What are you guys impacting? What do you guys plan to impact on loss of parking spaces?
We're not going to impact any parking spaces. So all existing spaces are going to remain.
So there's no change in parking whatsoever. It's all
No change.
adjacent to the
No
road.
change.
Okay, it's all, okay, I'm sorry, because I was just looking at, Six Pearl Court as an example. Six Pearl on my picture, and I'm seeing, you know, the square cutout here, and it's got 7 or 8 spaces, which are including.
Okay,
So I can.
I'll let you clarify.
Yeah, the square cutout, if you look at the, so this is kind of a.
And then it's a
mismatch.
smaller square too, by the way. Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of a mismatch between the exhibit and the site plans themselves, kind of how it's drawn in the site plan. That box is intended, there's another picture that kind of shows a blown up version of that area. The box is not representative of the equipment itself, that's more just kind of showing, oh, this picture you have on the side here, this is this area.
So, and then there's a small box within the dotted line,
Which I said, yes,
and then there's also some orange lines.
Yeah, the orange lines are required setbacks for the equipment itself for access and servicing.
But so to give you a perspective, it's just because the box is in the parking area, doesn't mean there's parking spaces being lost, but rather it's certain areas around that will be within that vicinity. But again, there's there's no parking.
there's no parking spaces.
Exactly. There's no parking spaces lost as part of this application.
Okay, and then the orange that you called out. Is that where bollards would go? Protections?
So if you look at the diagram, you have the orange checkered spot.
Yep.
And then you have little circles in front of them for the ballards marked on the diagram.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Any other? Oh, no. Thank you.
I could have seen it better 5 years ago.
No, thank you. Thank you. All right. You know, we're talking about a very specific site. I get it. Okay. But you guys have done this before. Tell me. Just example, tell me where else you've installed this in a property similar in size.
Yeah, just in Bergen County, we recently got through commissioning on, I believe, 10 projects between Fairfield and Pine Brook, New Jersey. Kind of in conjunction with this, we're also developing 3 projects in Mawa. Yeah, we're developing a project in Oakland as well. I mean,
Richfield.
Yeah.
Okay, but where have you installed? Like what's already up and running?
Morristown, we have, you know, portfolio of 19 rooftop projects that are very similar in nature to these that are operational in 2023.
And there's been no issues. It's like
No issues.
at all.
Nope.
And that's just with respect to community solar, correct?
Yes.
So not just beyond the traditional solar that practically put in the past as well.
Is this one of the bigger projects size wise that you guys have done?
No, it's not.
So you mentioned Morristown, so.
So in Morristown, it was a portfolio of 19 projects that were all similar in size to these proposed projects. So, and that's,
You're gonna have 7 and that's 19.
yeah.
mountains and Castle, I'm sorry, looking at it as an aggregate. You know, I know it's 7 I was looking at, I was more looking at the whole aggregate.
Oh, no, so
Other- yeah.
Yes, that's why I think you were saying those 19 buildings are all comparable size
Comparable size.
as to these buildings.
All right, thank you for the clarification. All right. Board.
A question for our engineer. Michael, so these were separate properties?
Yeah.
So in the application process, Seven.
They filed 7 applications. Fees for 7 applications.
site plans,
And it was 7 sets of site plans, and it was decided for clarity, that minimize confusion, if it was presented as all one application.
right,
It was, that was still 7 applications, 7
so even on the building side will be 7,
will be a building permit process.
where it's shown there.
Yeah, one other thing, you just want to clarify, I think in terms of one question, it's so misleading at all.
Yeah, earlier on, it's been asked if the racking system was a bolted connection to the roof. I just wanted to clarify that, the racking system with the panels, the bolted connection was referring to the panels to the racking system itself. The racking system will be fastened to the roof with a combination of mostly ballast, as well as some mechanical attachments as needed, which are, mechanical fasteners to the roof structure.
And that's typical for all types of solar. So,
Yes, that's correct.
let me ask this question, in terms of the construction of these sites from a physical perspective, there's really, this is consistent with the design of pretty much any other type of rooftop solar installation, correct?
Yes.
I think. No. I guess the question was more framed, but I think what might have been modified from somebody else on the board, but. You had, well, we do the best that we can to prepare for a hurricane, but, okay, well, for a tornado, which thank God we don't really get around here, but. It happened, are we gonna have these things peeling off? And we'll find them in the Hudson River somewhere.
No, I mean, the codes are written that way specifically. I mean, again, our codes are written a different way, and I think they're giving you kind of extra factors, knowing that sanity happens, right? I mean, exactly. So, and they've also been updated consistently too. So some of my structural engineers would say, it's gotten harder to build what they've done in the past several years than what it was 10 years ago.
And obviously you're adhering to the most up-to-date
Exactly.
requirements.
Yes.
Set forth by the state, et cetera.
Exactly.
Or the governing bodies or in the engineering, firms, et cetera. Okay. Questions for this witness? Michael, is there anything?
Nothing.
I'm going to open up to the public. Any questions, comments of the testimony you just heard? Okay, seeing none, I bring it back to the board. Council,
We have one more witness. We have our planner. Have him just run through the proofs with respect to these firms being requested.
thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Ricky, do you swear or affirm the testimony about the truth, the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I did.
I assume you're
loudly, okay.
You always speak loudly. And I assume your planning license remains in good standing since you last appeared last Wednesday in my presence.
I have, but just quickly, I'm a licensed professional planner since the year 2000. I have master's degrees in city and regional planning from Rutgers University. I'm currently a municipal planning consultant in 7 towns, so I on the other side of the board, I hear the same issues and the board's questioning and asking. I testify regularly in front of boards. I've been qualified in every county in the state. Never in Allendale. Over 250 towns. Grew up fairly locally in Monmouth, but never testified.
I divert to council to make sure that they're okay.
Okay is a relative question, but he's certainly a qualified expert witness.
Well, welcome to Allendale. Yeah, welcome to Allendale. Okay, welcome to Allendale. Please proceed.
Sure. I just like to, I'll just say this, and tell the board we've done for the meeting, what you reviewed, and also any opinions you have with respect to the variance being requested consent.
Sure, I visited the site, I visited the application materials, spoke to our applicant team, asked my questions, and like, reviewed your code, your master plan, and then like. And based on that, was able to form a planning opinion. Spent a decent amount of time also reviewing the community solar program, with the state. Reviewing the municipal land use law and how it treats these applications. And, I guess that's pretty good. So be able to form a planning opinion as to the appropriateness of this application. If I may, some of this, I'll try not to be repetitive as much as I can, but some of this information is already indicated by our attorney. It's the combination of these properties is approximately, as Mr. Quinn said, approximately 35 acres. They're in your E industrial district. It's important to recognize, while we may not meet the entire intent of this provision as there were multiple applications that are filed, but it's important to recognize the municipal land use law recognizes this use in section 4055D 66.11. And I'll just indicate what it says. Wind and solar facilities permitted in industrial zone. It provides that a renewable energy facility, and that's including facilities producing electric energy from solar and photovoltaic technologies, on 20 or more contiguous acres under common ownership shall be a permitted use with every industrial district of the municipal county. The state's trying to push these facilities into industrial districts. I don't want to go off on a tangent here, Mr. Chairman, but you may have heard in past years, there were a lot of complaints associated with more so in South New Jersey, where farmland was being replaced with solar panels. And so the state really had a focus of placing these on roofs. I'm the city planner in the city of Linden. Every warehouse that goes in gets these panels placed on top of it. It's just commonplace. What?
It just happens.
It just, yeah, they design them, they design them ready to accept the panels, and then they just, miraculously, someone installed panels.
And again, the questions that the board was posing earlier is because when you're building something, you build to it, but here already got this, and now we're called retrofitting. Other, which I'm sure you understand.
100% understood. I understand it. And safety has to be paramount as part of any development application. So I understand that completely. The use, you can see the state is promoting this use. The use is also an inherently beneficial use, and that's a use that is determined to promote the general welfare of the community. What that means from a land use planning perspective, as a matter of law, an inherently beneficial use is considered appropriate in any district throughout the municipality. So the state says they're appropriate in large lots of industrial zones. The land use law also says that they're appropriate anywhere. I think a lot of the distinction realistically is in a residential zone, you'll see it done on a much smaller scale on rooftops than you may see in an industrial zone. But with that said, the law says that they're appropriate everywhere. You also heard when we reviewed your ordinance provisions that those ordinance provisions were created when I looked in the code in 2015. That was before the state enacted some of these changes to the municipal land use law as well. But with that said, I'm going to go through the requirements under the law. But as Mr. Quinn said as well, under your ordinance requirements, the only provision that we do not meet is that your ordinance requires these panels to be used in an accessory manner for the on-site buildings. Obviously, based on our testimony, we're looking for these panels to service the greater community as a whole and to meet that state community solar program that was testified to. You also heard our attorney also was articulate in recognizing that if energy stays on site or goes off site, that doesn't change the visual impact or how the fuse really operates. So I'm going to get into that quickly in a moment. But so it's really a function of where the power is going is the change. So this use is also anticipated under your code in addition to the municipal land use law, just with that one caveat. But because we technically have a use variance, when different than other use variance applications, when the use is inherently beneficial, we automatically meet the positive criteria for the reasons I mentioned, and the focus is on the negative criteria. But that, even that requirement is reduced in terms of how it's viewed. For other use variance applications, the board typically needs to show particular suitability for the site. You need to reconcile the use with the master plan. Those are not required for inherently beneficial uses. We're required to review under the scope of the second case, which is a 4-part balancing test. And essentially what that balancing test does, it asks you to identify the public interest at stake, the negative impacts associated with the use, whether those impacts can be mitigated, and then it asks the board to balance the benefits versus the detriments. If there's no substantial impact associated with the case, that law suggests that the board should be approving an application as such. And that's the difference than a traditional use variance application. And if we really heard, I'm not going to go into everything the previous witnesses said, you really heard the public, right? It's to provide power, to low-income households and other individuals in the community through that accrediting program that advances renewable energy generation, reduces greenhouse gas emissions, and supports energy affordability through community subscriptions. I think that's the really gist of the public interest here. In terms of the negative impacts, and we kind of discussed, I think the board discussed a lot of this already. I think you have to recognize that these are already passive land uses. These aren't land uses that are generating any real traffic, noise, population, needs for sanitary sewer and the like, and all those type of services that most uses receiving a use variance that you have to consider. That's not at play here. From a planning standpoint, the principal uses, these are kind of similar to cell towers, is what's the visibility of the use. Clearly, the issues of safety, a lot of those issues of safety they have to be addressed through that building permit process. State laws are very stringent on how these factors are, through that permitting process that occur. So again, when looking at the negative criteria, also I would indicate that because your ordinance requires this to be an accessory use, that would be something that would be considered to be negative as well, that needs to be reconciled. To that, again, I would say that there's a conflict here with your code and state code, which essentially this community solar program, which essentially is part of the state energy master plan and the like, requires us to provide that service offsite. So there's a direct conflict. We think that the fact that we're implementing state policy and code, we think there's benefits outweigh the detriments, and we hope the board will agree with that assessment. Also, because this is a roof mounting project, we're not going to be clearing large swaths of land and the like that you see going on historically in South Jersey, replacing farmland and the like. There's very minimal site disturbance going on here. I think we just heard that there's going to be small areas where I guess some of the equipment is going to be located. That's also, we heard the testimony regarding the limited visibility, if any, of these panels. And in my review of driving around, this is not, these buildings aren't located proximate. There's residences fairly close by, but they're not right there. There's woods, there's Route 17, there's grade changes, these are taller buildings. So there's no substantial, at a minimum, visual impact that would occur from these panels as well. Also, I believe that the panels are compatible with the character and performance expectations of the zone. This is an industrial zone. And here it's a low intensity use with limited daily traffic, noise, and other impacts. So I'm kind of summarizing, I had a little bit more detailed outline, but I think it's clear here that there's some tremendous community benefits and regional benefits associated with the solar production, the inherently beneficial nature of the project versus balancing versus negative impacts, which really are really very limited to none. There's really no visibility. I know there were concerns from the board regarding safety, and the applicant's going to adhere to all the safety requirements of this use through any litigation through the board and also through that very strict permitting process that this applicant has to go through as well. And you also heard that these facilities have ongoing maintenance individuals that will keep up the system. So this is not a new emergent land use. These have been around for some time. And this is not a town that's gonna be accepting the learning for either with this type of work. So, for the reasons I mentioned, I think this is a very strong application for use variance.
One other question too, and with respect to the conditions, that's also part of the secret balancing test.
Yeah.
The applicants already agreed to, on top of complying with the ordinance and complying with all code requirements, but also to meet with the fire department, to meet with the board engineer, to give an additional sense of information exchange and security and comfort level from those professionals.
Yes, and I'm sorry, all those mitigating conditions which should help, I guess, hopefully satisfy the board as to the safety.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Not much more to say.
Board? I mean, I agree with you. Everything is covered in it. And you can great testimony of both the previous witnesses, so. I don't really see, I don't have any questions for you. You know, if you want to open up to the public. Okay, seeing that, I bring it back. Is there anything? Yeah, is there anything? I don't listen.
I don't think we are, I mean, we discussed the statutory proofs, the enhanced rights, if you will, of the photovoltaic systems. I do have some conditions, with respect to the approval of the board will favorably. Chris, I'll share the resolution and draft with you before it's adopted at the next meeting, if the board takes affirmative action this evening. And we can go over them after, when the board's in deliberation, we can start walking through them. I've got them roughed down here to make sure we captured everything, but I've got nothing else.
All right, the board doesn't have, any questions to answer.
My summation will be very brief. I basically will reiterate what Mr. Ricky said. I mean, again, if the board has questions or concerns, we can talk.
I just have it kind of unrelated, and you may not want to answer this, it's fun, it's just, if the property changes hands, what happens to this asset? Stay with it, or
It would stay with it would run with the land, correct?
Yes,
The
that's
agreement
correct.
runs- Yeah, the agreement runs with the land, just like any rights or, lease or typical agreement.
So who owns, again, maybe it's not something, it's not the purview of the board, but who owns, this? You guys own them, and then you're leasing the space from the building?
So the building doesn't own them, it's owned by the company.
It's owned by the company?
Yes.
Okay. So,
it changes owners.
yeah, that's, yeah.
Question is does the new owner have the right to say, I don't know?
No, it would be part of,
That'd
just
be
like, so it's, think of it almost as, again, it's akin to, I wouldn't say it's the exact same situation, but if you have a lease, and if you have a lease on the property and your landlord moves, but your lease, it's like, as any lease, that commercial lease I write for any of my clients, it says that, the property sold, it's transferred over to the new, your rights are there to stay. These are your rights and they stay regardless of the owner, and that's, just like any commercial sale would be subject to all the other rights and contracts that are valid on the property.
You know, Simon and the tournament, it would just transfer with the new property owner, whatever the terms of the underlying sell with that, it's the
Yeah.
tenant.
Yeah.
So, but does that then become? Again, just a theoretical question, does this become like a deed restriction or?
No, it's not a deed restriction, just like any occupant, any tenants, any license on the property. That runs through the- Any,
So, another question I have, kind of building upon all of this, is that, I forget the staff. Volkswagen back there, but let's just say Volkswagen, is it Volkswagen? Okay, Volkswagen's back there. Volkswagen is, they don't want it on their building. What happens?
there's a contract already in place that has no,
That,
the contract is in place.
okay, that. the
That
landlord-
controls everything.
Landlord could do whatever,
That controls, the contract controls, think of it I would say it's equivalent to any lease. So if you all of a sudden have a landlord says, you know what, I don't like you, get off. I have a lease right here for the next 20, 30 years. We've invested X amount of money setting up our lease space. I mean, so it's very secure in that regard. It's just like any other use occupancy within the, it's different because it's utility based, and it's an unmanned facility, but it's, you know, a lot of the property law kind of theoretical things you think of apply here. Your contract dictates what the rights.
And then the fact that the state is pushing this, for lack of a better word, that also helps
Help.
that much more.
So it doesn't hurt. Again, we can open to the public, and I did, you know, there's 5 members, I hope we answered all your questions. If there's anything else, we can simply talk about it. That's the extent of my brief.
Thank you. All right, public questions of what you heard? Not seeing any, I bring it back to the board. Discussions?
I have one comment. So, I'm looking at the array on top of the building. It's quite a lot of coverage of the existing rooftops. So from the fire station, our fire department. Look at and review these building applications that were coming. See how. God forbid how they would fight a fire with this array up there.
So that's why I inquired about the tree class and all that with that, so they can say it.
But plus one thing your ordinance does include, which is incorporated in design, and our person is stuff such as this. There's certain requirements on the roof. There's aisle requirements to make sure there's proper access.
Right.
There's requirements where the tables can go. Your ordinance actually does contemplate all of those points because, again, typically, I don't know if you've heard solar applications before, but a lot of these would traditionally just go right to the building permit because as long as they comply with the ordinance, they go right to a building permit process. But that's all incorporated into your code as it stands.
To answer your question, we do have these on residences
Okay.
throughout the town.
And that's where you should be here.
Yeah, what, again, as long as they comply. It's not coming before the land use board, as long as it meets, Michael, correct me.
Yeah.
I know, we never heard.
It meets the zoning requirements.
Exactly.
The zoning permit.
Exactly.
Yeah, and
Exactly.
but
So this is
again,
really like the first one that we're hearing.
and it's understandable. And again, we're happy to be here. We're happy to be here. But in regard to your question, some of the ordinance departments, like honestly, a number of them specifically talk about safety for emergency access to rooms. And it's built into your ordinance.
And to your point with coverage, you've got basically the whole roof covered except for a 3-foot sort of swath around the perimeter of the building, right?
No, but also the required access. There's access aisles that are required throughout. So if you actually look at the plan, there's certain
Yeah.
paths and around the HVAC equipment to make sure that everything can be maintained.
Yeah, I see that.
Review rooftop sign.
Yes.
I was just worried about the perimeter, right? When a firefighter could fall off. the
No,
building.
and again, there are requirements that your ordinance says has to be 3 feet away from all edges of the building. So your ordinance does say that.
Okay.
So again, this is all, Allendale's already incorporated a lot of these into its concerns for safety.
And there's the parapet height. So you mentioned there's modest parapets on these. Typically parapets are 3.5 feet high. I
These are
doubt you have
smaller,
that.
but it's small, it's not that these types of buildings, but there is some additional parapet.
You don't need a railing to increase that height.
Yeah.
Of the parapet.
And again, council, the reason why I've been on here for some time. Questions that we're posing here, this is really the first time that I can think of. That an application like this is coming forward. That's why these
No.
questions are being, and I appreciate your comments too about the fact, the way that our ordinance is written. And yes, they are from some time ago in anticipation of this. But not to the scale that we're discussing.
No, agreed, but again, interestingly, if this application didn't, it would have, like, I guess my perspective is, if this project just had the owner saying, I want a contract and I want to get better electric bills, and it could be this exact project, wouldn't go in front of this board whatsoever. In fact, because it does meet all those other ordinance safeguards that the governing body hasn't put in place since 2015. So you just wouldn't have seen it. But again, so it is like, again, we appreciate your questions. And again, yeah, I think the applicant is certainly willing to work and do what's necessary to, again, make the board feel comfortable here. But again, all these were already incorporated into your, and I said that when especially when I read through your ordinance, all of these were incorporated into your ordinance, all those safety concerns. It actually was. So it was a fairly comprehensive ordinance. I've seen some ordinances where it's 2 sentences and that's all you get from the entire thing. This is actually a fairly comprehensive, and detail-oriented, ordinance that was adopted by the government.
Thank you. And if I could just spin, I want to spin, but if I could spin around what Jeff Mitchell said, in easier term. If we didn't have in that ordinance, that's what it was supposed to do. If we didn't have in that ordinance, the fact that we say that we want the power that's generated to remain on the property, it wouldn't be clause. That's what I'm hearing.
Probably
Yes.
not. I mean, if they could have triggered site plan somehow perhaps, but it would have, in that case, been a conforming site plan before the planning board composition of this board. And statutorily, it would have been beyond the ability to deny at that point. The use issue is what brings them here to the Board of Adjustment jurisdiction, and then it's the site plan reviewable component, which is limited, I think, evidenced by Mr. Greenland's decision after the initial report. It's effectively conforming.
Thank you for that. The board. Well, I understand. Council, is there? Okay,
I'm good.
all right, thank you. Council, is there anything that's on Howard? I think about this.
No, not at all. No. So we discussed a few conditions, which I'll refine in a more articulate manner, but we talked about all permanent documents going to be reviewed and scrutinized by all departments having jurisdiction, including the fire official. And I don't know if it's also potentially post, like install site inspection with your office to ensure conformance with the borough mandated controls for both rooftop and ground mounted equipment.
I would say 3, and then whatever post inspection.
Okay. Great. Structural feasibility report to be provided with the permit filing documents. Applicant to undertake and make the site available for a walkthrough with the fire department personnel for training and educational purposes post implementation. The applicant will file an O&M manual with the borough that was offered by the witness. Applicant will add keys to the access panels and the existing Knox boxes in the buildings if the fire department is appropriate as a means to access the physical shutdown of the system if necessary. That's all I have here by way of specific conditions, Mr. Chairman and board members. Mike, please let me know if I missed anything, and council, please let me know if you disagree with what I've captured.
Board, is there anything?
I have no objection, but
Well, thank you.
I mean, that was a.
Sometimes I type with bits, so you got it. Sometimes I'm off.
Board, if there's no questions, that's all.
Yeah, the boards at the applicant rested their case, that the board's at the point now where the board can deliberate and then make a motion to approve or deny, whatever the board's pleasure is of. It's right for action at this point.
And I've asked if there's any questions or observations of the board that I'm hearing. So, motion to approve or deny.
I'd like to make the motion that we approve. Particulars. All our questions were answered and I don't foresee a reason. Why to think.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Second.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
I just want to be very clear on something. You can have something to ask you. We are approving this use in this area for this application.
Precisely, this is more for, I think, the record's sake, council, not than anything else. It's, yes, the applicant has to stand on its own merit and subject to the parameters they've got with the property that they're looking to develop upon with that programming. So the testimony this evening was peculiar and specific in support of the relief for this site only, with this specific type of use and the specific deviations that the applicant presented to the board. It does not create any type of precedent moving forward for another applicant walking in the door for a different site within the borough. Just because the board may act favorably on this application. So this evening, the applicant had a full deck of witnesses, fact witness and an expert witness who I think thoroughly explained the programming proposed and the statutory criteria supporting the implementation of that programming. So another applicant cannot walk in that door and phone it in, so to speak. with an ask for a similar type of development without putting their proofs on the record to the satisfaction of the board in conflict with the statutory requirements, simply because they want to rely on an action that might be taken here. That's right.
Despite the state of everyone's.
That's right.
Okay. Does the board are we all in understanding of that? Okay. All right, so we have a motion and a second, so we move to a vote.
Okay,
We're okay, we're okay.
Ready to vote?
Here to vote.
Yeah, I think you, that's right. You're
Yes, I
supposed to vote, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Vice Chairman Dallo,
Yes.
Board Member Aguilera,
Yes.
Chairman Sirico,
Yes.
Board Member Butler,
Yes.
Alternate Johnson.
Yes.
Great. Thank you so much for your time. tonight.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. Thanks. That was the extent of our hearings for tonight. I open it to the public for any questions or comments.
So, and you need a copy. You don't need that copy.
All right, seeing none, I bring it
Just paper
back.
copy would be fine.
Any other, I'm sorry. No. That's okay, that's okay, that's okay. All right, is there any other business that we need to discuss? No, do you have anything, you know, okay. The one thing I'm just gonna throw out is the texting, we're all good with. I think this texting is, it's more for, you know,
Information.
something like that, okay? Any official business has to go through. Okay, any official business has to go through this. For our borrower, okay? I feel good, you know what we've been doing with the department, so is there anything you need to add to that?
No, I mean, that's the only thing that would, if anybody touches the documents, that's gonna be discoverable. So keep it all there, you know, and I realize we're still on the record, but always watch what we say. Less is always more, which makes it easier for in a courtroom. For me, I'll sweat a little less if there's less things that were said. So you can always go into closed session for anything that warrants closed session, not just litigation, but threat of litigation and perceived litigation. So not necessarily just, we have an active prerogative of appeal pending right now. We would discuss that in closed session, but if there was another application on that were heady or something that we thought was gonna get heady, you know, we go to closed session, discuss it here in person. I would keep the written communication as lean as possible. That's all I suggest.
Okay, but again, the way that we use it, the normal phone. Oh, that's usually that sector that. Picking up the time, right, that was all.
That's all for functional stuff, administrative stuff, that's fine, yeah, it's so good to do the application, when I put to it to where, you know, as a board at a public hearing, so. But, you know, to get the packet, I'll be there at 5, that kind of stuff is innocuous.
Okay, all right, thank you. All right, if there's no other business, you're good. Okay, if there's no other business, to have a motion to end. Motion. Thank you. Got a second? Thank you. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right. Thank you very much for coming.